Hello, my name is Kim Martman, and this is Chapter 5 in our Introduction to Excel 2016 book. And it starts on page 56, and it goes over charts and tables. So charts are also called graphs, and they can help make sense of complex data using the visual representations. Because you can have numbers all day long, just a list of numbers, but sometimes a chart makes it a bit more visual. It's a lot more striking that way. Charts excel at illustrating relationships between data or data values over a period of time, depending on the type of the chart. Tables add powerful filtering and sorting tools to an adjacent or contiguous block of data, including text. Once you have turned a block of data into a table, you can easily filter to view your data based on one or more elements. So we are going to go over tables as well. So the chapter objectives for Chapter 5 are to create a multi-layer data set, use the data to explore chart options and types, alter and customize charts, and practice creating data sets and accompanying charts, turn a block of data into a table, and use the tools in Excel tables to filter data. And this is probably the longest chapter in the book. So we're going to start by discussing on page 57 different types of charts. So charts display information graphically. They can help you and your audience instantly visualize relationships between data series in a way not possible just looking at numbers. In Excel, charts use the data in the cells you select. So you have to tell it what data you want to use first, including the labels. Excel has many different types of charts, from simple to complex. Excel will even help you pick the type of chart that will best display your data. So chart types include pie charts, and we've all seen those with the wedges, the circles with the wedges. Bar charts is a horizontal bar, and it represents comparative values at a given point in time. It's also sometimes called a histogram. A column is similar to a bar graph, but it is vertical, it's up and down, and it's easier to compare values of each category, and it's good for comparing two or more items. A line is used to emphasize trends and the change of values over time. So it's kind of the stock market thing. It's like the hills and valleys. An area shows how items combine to form a total. It's similar to a line chart, but it provides a more dramatic representation of a change of values. And we will go over these in a minute once I put the data in, and we can kind of go over what they look like. But all charts have the following elements, and once again, this will make more sense once we start in on our chart. They have the data series, which are the numbers basically you're going to use to make the chart. The x-axis goes straight across or horizontal, and it corresponds typically to the columns in your data. The y-axis is vertical, so it's up and down, and it corresponds to the values in the rows. And the legend is kind of like the little dictionary. It describes what the chart represents using text and colors. Elements can be formatted, deleted, or added, and you can change each element manually or apply a pre-formatted Excel style to the entire chart. So when the chart is selected, the Chart Tools tabs appear, and we will change how the chart looks. So first, we're going to be on the bottom of page 58. So we're going to go to the 2-year profits and losses, and we're going to fill out the data there and create the chart. So first, I'm going to go cell E1 to A1 and merge and center that. We can call it 2016. There's F1 to I1, merge and center once again, right here. 2017. So one way to make that a little bit more visually striking here, you can kind of see here's 2016 and here's 2017. Drag that kind of down. I'll show you how to do some borders. So there's that left border. Can't really see it because it's kind of against that. And that one. So that way it kind of divides them. And then we can also, on the top, all orders. And so see, that kind of makes it, let's see. Actually, I think Google Academy highlight one too many columns it did. So the way to kind of unmerge and center that, and that's actually a good example. So I can just click again to unmerge and center it. And then I can just go out to D. Unmerge and center it again. And then I'll just delete column. Yeah. See, it's not set in stone. If you find yourself making a mistake, you can always fix it. And now, in cell A2, I'm going to type in Q1 for the first quarter. And this is another thing I can get the black cross and autofill. So there it sensed I was doing quarters. Now I will just put borders on each of those two to make it a little bit easier to read. And now I'm going to go to page 59. Now I'm going to, just for practice, insert a column again. So I just click on the A above column A and then go to insert. I do it a little bit differently in the book because I like to kind of illustrate it a few times. And sales, expenses, and profit. And then with this, I'm just going to type in the numbers that the book put in for me. 4, 5, 6. And then we have 6, 8, 9. And for profit, we can just, for review, do a quick formula. So we will do equals. And then we'll do B3 minus B4. So that's 1. And then once again, we can get the plus sign of the black cross and drag that across too, so we don't have to keep doing it. Okay. So now we're going to create a chart based on the profits and losses. So I'm going to click A1 and go all the way down to I5. So all of this is highlighted, including that blank space there. So you can see I don't copy or anything that doesn't let you chart from here. So kind of resist the urge to double click. So before that, I will go to the insert tab. Does everyone see insert next to home? It's right here. And then there you can insert a table, but we're going to insert a chart. And the more recent versions of Excel have recommended charts, so it takes the guesswork out of it, which is really nice. So I'm going to click on that. And here's the recommended chart. This is what it suggests. You see the columns. And that is a clustered column. So the sales are in blue, the expenses are in orange, and the profit is in gray. But now I'm going to go to all charts, this all charts tab on top. I clicked on that. And so now I'm going to kind of show you the different types of charts. So there's the column charts once again. There's the line pie chart, which doesn't really work for this. There's the bar chart. The area chart, so it's like the line chart, but it's kind of colored in. It looks like mountains. The scatter plot with all the dots. Well, we wouldn't really have a map. And there's the surface chart, radar, which looks like a radar, a little bit of a tree map, a sunburst, histogram, which doesn't really work for this data set, fox and whisker, a waterfall, funnel, or a combo chart where you can see it has the sales and the expenses, and then the profit is a line. And you can set these all sorts of different ways. And we are going to click on combo just for this example. See, it lets you do on page 60 some different things to kind of customize it. So you can see the sales are the clustered column. See on the bottom here, the expenses are a clustered column because it's the orange and blue. Here, they're both columns. The profit is the line, the gray is the line. You can tell it you want it as an area and see how it lets you kind of preview it as you go along. So I'm just going to use this as an example because that's what the book has. So now I'm going to hit OK. And there's the chart. Now the chart looks like a single picture, but like the bottom of page 60 says, it's a collection of customizable elements such as axis labels. So see, here's this, and then there's the legend, there's the title, all these different things you can click on. And even within it, see, there's all that, and that, and that. So now I'm going to select the legend, and then see I can click on profit, and that's profit just by itself. And so then I can just edit that to say something different if I wanted to. And you're also not locked into your chart style. So let's go to page 61. You can change your current chart to a different type or change the look with a different design. So now I'm going to click on the chart title. Now you can see up here there's on top where these tabs are next to help, there is a chart design. And if I were to click anywhere else on the spreadsheet, that would disappear. And then I click on it again and chart design and format appear again. And that just means these are only visible when I am clicked on the chart. They are contextual tabs is what those are called. And there are different ways to change the way the chart looks in the chart design tab. So in the middle here, you can see where I have the chart styles and I can click on different ones. You can see how it's changing. Lets you kind of preview it. And then here's this down arrow on this side. It says more. There's not really a lot more. Sometimes they have a lot more than others. It just kind of depends on which format you have. There we go. So that's just for an example. Maybe I don't really care for that color scheme. So you can see here, this is a little bit more monochromatic here. So that you can do too. Just depends on what you want to do. And I think you can also change the fill on these too. So and see when you change the fill on one, it changes the fill of the rest of them. So what I did there was I right clicked on this column, went to fill, and change that color. And I can right click on these orange columns, once again, go to fill, and change that color. And then right click kind of in between these columns, right click here, and then I can change. I can even make that a gradient, make it look a little bit more 3D. There's all sorts of different things you can do with this. Maybe make it a fancy texture if I wanted to. There's all sorts of things you can do with that. And then there's all sorts of different things you can do with this too. There's add chart element, axis titles, chart title, data labels. Data labels are nice to have. Well, that one doesn't work as well. Or you can right click here and add the data labels. And see, that just tells you what each data label is. You have to do it for each, for the profit and the sales and the expenses. But that's especially useful on a pie chart. Okay. And here's add chart element. So there's all these different ones, and then here's where you can adjust where the legend goes. You can add legend keys down here to show exactly what that is. Or no legend keys, but there's the legend down there. And now we can also change the chart title. So you can kind of see that I double clicked on the chart title until it became highlighted, and then I just typed over it. So there is a way to change that too. And now also a chart can be moved around too. So see how I have my mouse kind of in a white area here. I can just drag it over. So that way it's not sitting in front of my data. I can just drag it wherever I want. Or I can right click, move the chart, and now it defaults as being an object in my 2-year profit and loss spreadsheet, but I can move it to a new sheet, new tab. So that's 2-year P&L. Just hit OK. And then there's the 2-year P&L chart just by itself. Now, if you decide you want to change the order of the tabs, you can just click on the tab and see how this very small black triangle appears and drag it. So now I just kind of drag it over and just drag it to the end. I drag it over to the end, so that way it's in the order that I want it in. But the chart will also change if, and so here's my data here that I used for the chart. Here's the 2-year P&L again. But if I were to go, for example, to cell G4 and change that to a 10, which means profit in cell G5 is a negative number, it's -2. I'll go back to the chart here on the bottom, and you can see how this data changed. There's the profit, it went down. So let me just hit undo. So now it's a 4 again. I can see how that changed. So it does keep track. You don't have to redo your chart every single time. So now on to page 62, which goes over tables. So tables, let me go back. Tables can take any adjacent cells of related data and convert them into an Excel table. So the tables add tools and formatting for sorting and filtering the data. And you can see the difference between the simple data set and the Excel table on page 62. It has an example. So now I'm going back to the cost of labor tab. You can see it here. I've highlighted all of this. That is optional as well. If you're leaving everything, if you're not leaving anything out, you don't necessarily have to highlight it. Let's go to home. And then here's styles right here. Does everyone see styles? It's kind of right above. There's format as table, and then down arrow. And then it's just saying, where is the data for your table? So highlighting it ahead of time does save you that step. And then see, you can see it's kind of showing here what you highlighted, and then just hit OK. And now you can see, I'm going to click below it, that every single heading here has a down arrow. So for example, with gross pay, I'm going to go to page 63 and just kind of look at some of the functions here. We'll start actually last name, which is over here. And so see, you can see now when I highlighted the wrong thing, it didn't do the whole thing. So that's why it's always important to make sure you have everything highlighted correctly. And that is a good quick fix. Just format it again. You just hit undo and format it again. So nothing is set in stone. Make sure you have everything highlighted. And it's just easier to do it ahead of time. So now we'll go to last name. So this drop down arrow, you can sort it A to Z and see how it brings over everything else. So when I made it A to Z, it brought Frank Banks to the top, and it also brought his associated numbers to the top. I should probably zoom out a little so you can see the whole thing. I know it's a little bit harder to see. Or you can sort Z to A, reverse alphabetical. So again, it took that all together. You don't have to worry about the rest of the data not transferring. So now you can also do the same with the gross pay, but that can be in numerical order. With the number filters, you can see that. Do greater than or greater than equal to, less than or equal to. So I can just filter out the ones that are less than 500. So see, you can see gross pay is less than, but then I bring down this and it has all sorts. But I do that, and now after I click on that, I made it less than 500, and only shows the people who made less than 500. And then once it's not gone forever, see, I can just click on this down arrow again and clear the filter from gross pay. So those are very handy if you have a very large spreadsheet, and that way you can just kind of filter everything, and it makes it a lot quicker. And so that was page 64 as well. I got a little bit ahead, I'm sorry about that. But on the bottom, there is using the table design tab. So now that I'm clicked on this, you see it says table design, because you have to be clicked on the table. So here's table design. And it lets you kind of design it from there. You can check and uncheck. So here's the header row. See, I uncheck that, and the headers, the days of the week go away. Banded rows, every other row. You can also do banded columns, every other column. It is the first, and it highlights the last. And then you can toggle that button on and off. Maybe if you don't like that particular shade of orange, you can go for something a little bit bolder. So there's all sorts of different things you can do with this. See, I just banded the rows there. You can add a total row to the bottom that just does the total gross pay. And then once you do that, you can click on the gross pay, and we're going to go to page 65. Now that I have my total row, we can go to page 65. And then we can just click on this down arrow here. And so you can do a few things with it. Like here's the average. The average pay is $473.33. Count, there are 6 employees. The maximum is $547.50. The minimum is $430. So there's all sorts of different things you can do with this. So now on the bottom of page 65, we're going to practice doing another chart, and then we're also going to do, based on this data, a pie chart. So now I'm going to make another tab. And I'll just move it to the end there. And I'm going to rename the tab monthly budget. There we go. And I'll just recolor it. I'm trying to make this pretty rainbow here. So there's my monthly budget. Now I'll go over to page 66, and I'm just going to fill out this spreadsheet to follow the example on page 66. Now, column E on page 66 is a percentage. So I'm going to make sure to click here to format it as a percent before I enter the number. Otherwise, it's going to get kind of creative with us. So that was column E. And so now, and now with this budget actual difference, I can tell that's going to be a currency thing. So I am just going to click on accounting, number format. And once again, I am going to get rid of the 2 decimal places. So I'm going to go to decrease decimal and hit that twice so it changes to custom. And again, I can just go between this A and the B and widen it. And then again, I'm going to show some, just for practice sake, the difference will be minus B3 minus C3. And now with accounting, you can see it's kind of a dash. So that's the 0. There was no difference. Actually, that should be C3 minus B3. So that's how you would fix it. C3 minus B3. So if you make a mistake in your formula, it is not set in stone. And I can just drag that down. And there's the 250. And then I can auto sum the total income here. And then autofill that across. Then I can go back to borders up here on the very top. See where I'm in borders. And I can just do a bottom double border to kind of set that aside. And let me kind of do some shading once again, kind of make things stand out a little bit better. So here we have, and here's another trick. I'll just bold this entire row so that way I don't have to. Expenses, budget, actual. We're going to use the percents for our pie chart. Here we go. I'm going to go between the A and the B and widen that again. Of course, these are obviously pretty made up numbers. So then I'll just put the border on the bottom. expenses. So here's the total expenses, just for the example. I'll undersum that. And then I will make it what cost it. And then the difference, to get the numbers reflected in the book so we can do the charts. Once again, just for practice, I will do C8 and then again, I'm just doing the way the book illustrates it. And I have them reversed. So when you have them reversed, my instinct wants me to turn the other way. I can always just fix it up here. Here we go. Sometimes when you black cross, it kind of gets rid of that. So you can just go back up to this border right here and fix that. So there we go. You can see the 15 is in parentheses because it is negative, and then there's the dash for the 0. And then for the percentages, I'm just going to and you can see how it automatically adds that percentage there. And it doesn't have a decimal place or anything like that. And then on 16, we have the total budget balance. And the difference would be equals T5 minus T14. You can see how it highlights them both. The difference is 245. And you can just bold and italicize that. Okay. So now that I have my data the way it is reflected in the book, we're going to create two different graphs. So there's a bar graph to visually compare the budgeted versus actual expenses, and a pie graph showing the percentage of each expense to the whole. So for the bar graph, first off, I will do A7 to C14. So I highlighted the expenses in each expense item, and then the budget and the actual. Now I'm going to go back up to insert. And since this time I kind of know what I want to do, there's all these different types of charts here. And column or bar chart, they're both under this column chart here. So you can see here are all the bars, bar charts, and then here's this. It automatically inserts that into the worksheet. So let's go on to page 67. We're going to add a pie chart. So with the two charts, let me kind of pull this down out of the way. So with the pie chart, this is what gets a little tricky. This is where the holding down control comes in. So I'm going to start at A7 through A13. So expenses all the way down to food. We don't want to include the total expenses this time. And then E7 to E13. You see they're kind of symmetrical there. So let's go back to insert, and we don't include the total because what the pie chart does is it compares them. It represents a whole and just shows how the different pieces make up the whole. So there's the donut chart to further do food comparisons. It's like a pie chart just with a hole in the middle. There's the 3D pie and the 2D pie. So there it is. And again, with these, just like illustrated before, we can totally change the color and the layout and all that. I do like adding data labels, so I would right click on this here and add the data labels. And here's the legend down here, and there's the pie chart. So on the bottom of page 37 or 67, there is a kind of a practice activity to create your own comparison chart. And you can actually use this spreadsheet and add or delete things to it and just change the numbers up to kind of practice with that. But of course, if you ever need help, you can always call me. My number is 214-525-6145. And I'll be glad to do a Zoom call or something virtual with you so we can kind of go over what you are stuck on and kind of set up an appointment.